Today we're going to talk about SMART goals. So the acronym SMART. So the S stands for specific, right?
Straight up, right? So anyway, when everybody wants to be rich,
Right.
You have to be, specific in what it is you're looking for.
Building legacies, bridging the wealth gap, teaching financial literacy, and providing you with the keys to success. Nothing is off the table. Building legacies, one brick at a time.
Hello. Thanks again for tuning in to another episode of Building Legacies. And I'm joined today with my two wonderful co-hosts, Stan and Eric. So guys, how are things coming along on your side of the town?
well, doing well, no complaints, doing well.
I wish I could sound like E, man, but it's always one problem after the other, man. It's like I'm wearing 20 different hats, man, and I've mastered none of them. So it's always one thing after the other. So I can't lie. But things is going smooth, though. You know what I mean?
Right,
Don't
right.
worry, don't worry. In due time. And one thing I can say here, like the first quarter's over. Now we're going into the second quarter. It's April, and I can tell you one thing: the weather here is chilly. I would think that we would start to get some sunshine, warmer temperatures. We're now in April, but it's chilly here in New York.
It's about to be 90 here.
You're right, exactly. I was about to mention that down here it's hot. Like it's summertime.
Oh wow! I wish I could get some of that. Yeah.
Word. So Issa, what's been going on, man? You see the market, man. The market been tumbling lately, man. What's been going on? I know you in heavy, man. What's been going on with the market, man?
Yeah, man, basically, Trump, our guy, Donald Trump, right? And his policies, man. And so I think we spoke about this before as far as, the tariffs, which actually today, I don't know when this episode may air, but April 2nd is the deadline for what he called a Liberation Day, right? Of, the imposition of tariffs across the board on every country that the United States does, import and export business with.
And we spoke on that. Sorry to cut you, but we had an episode of that months ago forecasting what's about to happen right now.
Right. And as a result of that, as we know, but the stock market is reacting, right, to the effects of the tariffs, as far as this relationship to inflation, how that's going to affect the average person. Because with inflation, the goods and services is going to increase in price, and everybody's already maxed out, stressed to the limit, right? And it's like a trickle down effect, right? It's though from policies, then consumers react, right? They may not be spending as much, right? Because, if everything is so high, so your discretionary income is not going as far. So some people deciding to save. People that are in the know are not spending as much. Now, businesses are affected, right? And these businesses is directly related to the stock market. So we're seeing massive declines in the stock market, man. Individual companies and as well as these indexes, right? The S&P 500, the Dow, NASDAQ. We just see massive declines, right? And everybody's affected by it, but there's a silver lining as well. You know what I mean? If you're patient, that's how you have to be with the market. The Fed, they have different tools to combat if inflation gets, too crazy. They have different tools to combat that, and that may affect the stock market. Because one thing about the stock market, from my just limited understanding and base, knowledge, is very reactionary.
Yeah.
Right. A report that comes out, right? It could be a rumor. It don't have to be true. You're going to see, if you're watching the chart, you're just going to see activity, right? Right. So that's what's going on now. It's just a massive decline. Everybody's the uncertainty of what may transpire with the president and his current policies with tariffs.
I wonder too how everything is going to play out, because I was listening to something and they were talking about how it's going to affect the car dealerships. So I'm not sure if any of you have bought a car lately, but I did purchase a car maybe about 3 years ago, and I was like really surprised at how expensive a vehicle is these days.
Mm-hmm.
So what I heard is that the average vehicle now, with these policies being put in place, and I guess these tariffs, is going to add an additional, I think, anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000 to the cost of a vehicle.
Absolutely.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's really astronomical, and just guess we got to wait and see how it's going to play out and how it's going to affect,
Absolutely. So, like you said, so the tariffs itself, but more important, like you said, the price of a car. There's people going to still buy the car no matter what the prices are, and there's some people going to hold back. But parts and things of that nature. So, for the existing cars that are already out here, if you need a part, the tariff on those parts coming from these countries is going to increase dramatically, right? Which is it's going to fall on the consumer. So it doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter if it's car parts. It doesn't matter if it's clothes. It doesn't matter if it's toys. It doesn't matter what it is. All of these products is going to have a tariff on there, and it's going to have a direct result on the American people who already is going through a tough time with increased credit card debt and things of those nature. So you just got to find a way to hold on, man. You got to find a way to hold on and keep going.
And that's why, too, tuning into podcasts like this, Building Legacies, like there's a saying that you have to show up to go up. So educating yourself, on additional streams of income and how you can carry yourself through these uncertain times. That's very important.
Right. And with me, because I'm invested in the stock market, right? And the strategy that I use allows me to still make money, right, from the market despite the decline, right? But obviously it's affecting the profit, you know what I mean? The profit, but it still allowed me to stay afloat, you know what I mean, using the specific strategy that I use. So those that's invested in the stock market is stressed out, everybody pulling their hair, because some people don't utilize, some strategies. So you're just sitting back, just watching your portfolio disintegrate, right? Versus having a strategy just like a hedge, right? To say, okay, I see my portfolio has declined 20, 30%, but I'm going to offset that with this other strategy, right?
Absolutely.
As a hedge, right? So you could
diversify, yeah.
Right, to recover, right? Because if not, you just sitting back and then people are panic selling, right? It's a lot, man. It's a terrible time right now. But, we'll see exactly, because one thing we know from prior experience, current President Donald Trump, he's a negotiator. He's playing hardball. So there may be some concessions between him and these other countries that they impose these tariffs on. They may come to the table. But, he's putting on this hard exterior, this front. I mean, when you negotiate, you have to, right? It's all about, I was telling a friend of mine, it's like playing chicken, right? Where you got two cars coming toward each other. You want to see who's going to turn first.
Absolutely.
The deadline is coming up, which is April 2nd. So right tomorrow. So we'll see whether these countries concede and say, okay, we're going to, because what they going for is reciprocal tariffs, saying, okay, what you're charging us, we're going to impose back on you all. You know what I mean? So, I mean, that's just the gist of it.
Yeah.
If you're invested in the market, I encourage people, do more research and try to figure out a way to hedge those losses. You know what I mean? Right.
Yeah. Sounds like you have to be really strategic about your investment strategy.
Very.
These days, yeah.
Very.
So, guys, we know we're together again, as always, and I always enjoy being in the presence of, two young men. So, what is our topic for today? I'm sure our audience is waiting, to know, what are we going to talk about today?
Right. Yeah, we have a great topic today, and this, man, the way the universe works, the topic that you guys brought, to me, Bridget, you brought the wonderful idea of this topic called the SMART.
That is always.
That's always smart goal setting, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's very important. But when people hear smart, they just think, okay, just being smart, I guess being strategic, but not, smart, understanding the acronym.
Right.
SMART. And what it stands for, right? And I apply this to my life. I learned this acronym and the principles of this whole idea a while back, and it's been good for me when I do make goals, I take it through the SMART principles to make sure. And then y'all could elaborate on it a little more before we go into breaking down what each letter means.
Yeah, and I think this is like the perfect time to talk about SMART goals because, like I mentioned earlier, we just finished the first, not semester, but the first quarter, and now we're heading into the second quarter. So for those of you who did not achieve your goals during the first quarter, maybe because you didn't write down your SMART goals. Right. And so research has shown that when you write down your goals, you have a higher chance of reaching those goals.
Right.
And so today we're going to talk about SMART goals. So the acronym SMART. So the S stands for specific, right? So what is it that you want to accomplish? Who needs to be included? When do you want to do this? And why is it a goal? So when you're studying your SMART goal, the S stands for specific. So if you guys want to elaborate on that, maybe give the audience an example.
Right.
If you want, I can give one, or it's up to you.
Yeah. Yeah, I would like to give an example right quick before y'all expand on it. Like when I think about that, specifically being specific, right? When we, our podcast dealing with building legacies, building wealth and financial stability. So I just want to bring it back to money, right? Straight up, right? So anyway, when everybody wants to be rich, right? So if you ask a person, you say, okay. Right, they can tell you they want to be rich as opposed to being specific. Mm-hmm. Okay, when you say that, let's be specific. Let's put an actual dollar amount on that, right? Mm-hmm. So instead of just saying you want to be rich, let's be specific. Say, okay, I want to make $1 million, right? Mm-hmm. I want to make $10 million. You know what I mean? So being specific is very important as opposed to this vague idea of what it is that you want to achieve.
Right. And I agree with you too, Eric. And just to drill in a little bit further about being specific, you may also want to include, like, how are you going to actually achieve that goal? So you might want to do the reverse engineering. So I know that you were applying it to a monetary amount. So like if you're looking to increase your income or your revenue. So if you're looking to increase your revenue by 150K, say in 1 year, so then you're going to break that down by each month. So how much money do you need to bring in each month in order for you to achieve that goal? So depending on what your investment strategy is, so say like if you are a manufacturer and you're selling items, so then you're going to break it down to how many items you need to sell each and every month to bring in that additional revenue, if it's $11,000 or $12,000 a month, in order for you to bring in that additional 150K a year. So that makes sense to you guys.
Absolutely. Absolutely, it makes sense because when you get specific, it can be ambiguous, and it can't be open for interpretation.
Right.
You have to be, specific in what it is you're looking for. So to piggyback on Bridget, let's say, for instance, I have an ebook and I want to sell an ebook for $27. How many ebooks do I need to sell a day in order to make a certain amount? And how many I got to sell in a week to make a certain amount. So if I plan a goal for $10,000 a month or whatever, I have to be diligent and specific and say I need to sell 2 books a day or 3 books every day. Even if I'm walking on the street and I have to sell it by hand or to a friend or family member, that's being specific with everything you have to do and get to get the end result, so to speak.
Absolutely. And then that brings us into the segue of the next letter, which is M, and that's measurable, right? How can you measure progress and know if you're successfully meeting this goal? So with the example that Stanley just gave, like he talked about his ebook. So in order for him to know that he's successful, he got to actually see how many ebooks that he's actually selling each and every month for him to hit that goal, that target that he's aiming for. And then if he's not hitting it, one particular month, he may want to look back and say, okay, what did I do differently? Or what did I do wrong? Was I not advertising enough? Do I got to go back to my marketing? Maybe I need to brush up on my marketing, see why, you're not hitting that market as far as, it being measurable, measuring your results. So you want to be able to measure your results to see if you are coming along as planned. Let's say.
Right. That's very important as well. Yep.
Yes, absolutely. And then the next acronym is Achievable. So, like Eric said, we want to make $1 million, so is that really realistic? So, like, if you're starting from zero and you want to get straight to $1 million, that's like far and few in between. Like, so you want to make sure that your goal is actually achievable. So you may say, okay, well, right now, if I'm at zero and I'm trying to get to $1 million within 12 months, that's not really being realistic.
Mm-hmm.
That's like a pie in the sky. That's like something that seems far-fetched. And then also too, I feel that if it's too far-fetched, you will lose like your motivation as far as actually achieving that goal. So you're like actually setting yourself up for failure. So you want to, you may want to refine your goal and say, okay, well, you know what? That's not realistic. I can't make $1 million. I mean, I haven't even made $1. So you may want to scale back and say, okay, well, let me be more realistic. Okay, so maybe for the first year, I may start out with $50,000. Mm-hmm. And then, each year, as you continue along that trajectory, you may want to increase it. And then eventually, who knows, maybe by year 10, you may reach that $1 million. But just to come out the gate and say that you're going to make $1 million, that's not a realistic or an achievable goal, I would say. Do you guys agree?
Yeah, right. Because when I think of the A, within the acronym of SMART, right, you got achievable, / attainable, right, and that's very important. Of recognizing, okay, is my goal achievable or an actual attainable, based on, like for instance, if you say, okay, like you say, and those kind of coincide, realistic, attainable, achievable, but you say, I want to go to the moon. You know what I'm saying? You say, okay, I guess, they've had people that have been there before, but is that attainable for you with your current circumstances and resources? Right? Take all that into account, right? Although we've seen like it's attainable, obviously someone done it before you, right? But is it attainable based on your current circumstances, resources, knowledge? You know what I mean? So I think making sure that your goals are attainable, and in this day and age, like you don't want to short yourself either. You know what I mean? You don't want to talk yourself out of it, but just make sure that it's attainable, based on, like I said, how you are composed. You know what I mean? As far as intellectually, your resources, things like that. But I definitely encourage people to go, because I know a lot of people, they'll have a goal, right? Mm-hmm. And to some people it may be minute, but to them it's major, right? But I know people, they'll talk themselves out of it, right? They'll have the goal and then they'll be like, no, I can't do that. The self-doubt kicks in, mm-hmm. right? So I encourage people that when that happens, it's important to, disregard, because it's natural. We human beings, we all may experience that self-doubt when we're trying to attain, right? Or we visualizing a particular goal, like, wow, can I actually do it? But I encourage people to conquer that. You know what I mean? And as long as it's attainable, move out in spite of that feeling. So just keep that in mind.
I fell a victim to that achievable aspect, because when I started the clothing brand, I just automatically knew it was the best thing that was given to man, like the idea. I'm like, oh, wow, I got the GF, I got the F-turn back with gold fingerprints. I said, man, this thing going to sell out soon as that thing went live. It went double wood, right? Right? So it's like, it got to be achievable and attainable, and what I've learned from that experience, that I need to sometimes look at the other side, like what you think is good, what you think is the best thing, and all that. You have to look from the consumer standpoint, price point. You got to look what they may like, what they don't like. How can you reach them individually? How can you reach them as a whole geographically? So I was like you said, the impossible dream. It can happen. It's going to happen. And when I wake up tomorrow, the thing's going to be going ting, 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 ting. So it's like it gave me a reality check, because I didn't use this acronym. I wasn't using this acronym. I didn't create a goal for myself. Can I make $1,000 off of this? And how can I, and what route should I take to make it? So it wasn't an achievable goal. So I learned a lot in that process.
And I'm not sure if you guys heard of how Elrod, he wrote the book The Miracle Morning. So he talks about having extraordinary effort. So whatever is that you're trying to achieve, you need to have extraordinary effort. And so it reminds me, like when Stanley was talking, when you thought that, you was going to, I forget the amount you said you were going to sell, but he went through that same scenario when he first wrote his book, The Miracle Morning, which is like, New York Times bestseller. But initially, he thought that he was going to sell, I forget the amount, but it was going to be like thousands, of copies that first year. And he hit nowhere near his target. So I forget what the number was, but it was like a minute number, maybe in the hundreds, and he was projecting in the thousands. But he stayed with it. He didn't give up, So he talked about you have to have that extraordinary effort. And so he just continued to continue. And then eventually he did hit that market, that target that he was, trying to hit. So sometimes if you don't achieve it, initially, you still got to stay the course, You got to stay, you still have to have that motivation and that discipline and just continue along the, trajectory until you actually do hit that mark.
Right. Because
Go ahead, Eric.
But yeah, I think that's where a lot of us go wrong, where we have the right idea, the product, but we don't necessarily, we just think it's going to be an overnight success.
Right. No.
Right? Where the product is great, the idea is great, but being realistic in terms of how fast you think the thing is going to blow up.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And I know a lot of people like that. They have, grand ideas and things going to happen overnight. Now they're discouraged. And in reality, sometimes things take a little time. You're going to have to adjust and do things. But just thinking that something is going to blow up overnight, that's the issue, more so than the product or the idea. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I've learned, sorry, Bridget, to cut you off, but we're going to move on. I've learned that people like to do the same thing over and over again, right? If you like a particular shirt, you're going to wear that shirt over and over again, even if you got different shirts, right? So I don't care what business you're getting into, the mindset to have, like she said, achievable, the mindset, how can you change that person's or that customer's mindset to make them say they need another shirt, right? Or they need another toothbrush, or they need another pair of socks. You trying to break into these markets, you have to get into the mindset, and that goes into achievable goals. You have to try to first break that barrier, and how can you change their mindset?
Right.
Yeah. And there's a saying too that overnight success takes 10 years. So it's not, there's
you told me that earlier.
I'll say it again now for the audience.
Right.
Right. And so the next letter is R, which is relevant. And why am I setting this goal? Like, why am I setting this goal now? Is it aligned with your overall objective, right? So the goal needs to be relevant. It needs to be realistic. And sometimes, too, you may just have it based off of past performance, because past performance can be an indication of future results, success. So that's what the R stands for. I'm not sure if you guys want to add anything to that. If not, we'll go on to the last letter.
Yeah, right, because I know with certain, with the acronym, I know some like literature spin it a little differently, right? But the R, when I was first exposed to the SMART principles, the R stood for realistic, right?
Right, I've heard that as well too.
And that's realistic / relevant. It's still related, right? And like we mentioned a minute ago, make sure your goals are realistic. You know what I mean? Don't set yourself up for failure. That's the worst thing. That's the worst thing you need to do. Is set yourself up for failure, right? So analyze it thoroughly, and do the proper research and say, okay, is this goal realistic? You know what I mean? And if you come to that conclusion, move out on it. You know what I mean? Put everything you got behind it. But just making sure it's realistic and relevant.
Right. Yeah. And a lot of times when we're trying to achieve a goal, you got to do it like brick by brick, small increments, but just being consistent. That consistency is what's going to help get you to what you're trying to get to.
Right.
So, when you talked about being realistic, you want to be realistic and you want to make sure that it's something that you can do day in and day out. So, a lot of times, like I can refer this to weight loss. So, especially at the beginning of the year, everyone wants to lose weight. I'm going to lose 50 pounds, and they'll set themselves up for failure. They'll say, okay, I'm going to lose 10 pounds or 20 pounds in 1 month. And that's not really realistic.
Right.
So they'll go to the gym a few times, for a week or so. And I'm like, wait, the scale is not budging.
Right.
And then they want to give up, because they set themselves up for unrealistic goal. And also, too, what I've heard that, the purpose of setting a goal is not so much to hit that goal, it's the person who you become in the process. So, like, if it's a weight loss goal and you will have a goal of losing 50 pounds, but you say, you know what, I'm going to get up and I'm going to exercise. It's anywhere from 3 to 5 times a week, regardless if that weight comes off. So that's the person who you're becoming now. You're becoming a person that's inclined with your health. Like
Right.
Exercise now becomes a part of your lifestyle, regardless if you hit that weight loss goal or not. So it's the person who you're becoming by setting these goals as well too. That's very important. And then the last letter for SMART is T, which is time bound, right? What's the deadline? Is it realistic? And from my understanding, SMART goals are typically somewhere like around 6 months. Not sure they can actually be longer, but you want to give yourself a deadline and see if you're meeting those targets that you set for yourself. Mm-hmm. They can be quarterly, they could be monthly, they can be weekly, but you want to have that time bound. Yeah.
Right. And go ahead, Kyle. You want to say something?
No, so it's safe to say that SMART, the acronyms, right, are intertwined to a degree, right? You can use some of the definitions for each of them, so to speak. And because when she was saying the time frame, I was just saying, so I know it's the acronym, right? And we need to use it, but do we have to agree with every aspect of it? We can still somehow say, well, I agree or disagree, because I don't know about the time frame. Should it be a realistic time frame? Do I have a realistic time frame if I expect to reach a particular goal or limit? Do I have a time frame for that?
Right, but this is the thing with the time. It gives you some sense of urgency, right? Now, in purpose, you may not reach it then. I seen something recently, right? It says it's dealing with time and task, right? If you tell yourself something, it can be something that's cleaning your room. If you say it's going to take me 30 days to clean my room, you know something? It's going to take you 30 days to clean it.
I agree.
If you tell yourself it's going to take me 30 minutes to clean that room, you'll get it done in 30 minutes. So, or somewhere roughly. But what it does is it gives you a sense of urgency. Now, and that's pretty much how I live in terms of time. I always set a time because I learned these principles a while back, and it's funny, she brought up like weight loss and goals and things of that nature because I'm a certified personal trainer among other things.
Among other things, man.
Right. Right. I'm a little bit of everything, right? Yeah. But we were going for our certifications. That's how I was introduced to it, right? So when we're dealing with a client, right, this is something that we was learning. We telling the client to be specific, like, what is your weight loss goals, right? Don't just say you want to lose weight. Everybody want to lose weight. How much weight do you want to lose, right? Then, but the measurable. So, say for instance, a woman. Let's say she had a pair of jeans, right, in her closet. She could use her jeans as a measuring tool. She said, okay, you know what? I used to fit these 5 years ago. Now, in 5 months, she could put those back on, right? So this is a way of measuring things, right? But specifically with time bound, you may not necessarily achieve the goal at that specific, like right to the minute of that time, but it'll give you a sense of urgency. So if you put 6 months on it, every day you would be working toward it. Like, you know what I mean? Like diligently, because you got a time. You know what I mean? That's why you see certain corporations and things like that, when they're giving tasks to their employees, they give them a time. Because they understand, if I don't give you no time, you're going to be lackadaisical, right? Versus if I tell you this project need to be done in 30 days. Most people complete it in that 30 days or before. You know what I mean? Because it gives you that sense of urgency. You know what I mean?
I agree wholeheartedly. And then if you look at the acronyms, um, I think the time bound is like one of the important ones, because if you don't give yourself a deadline, I mean, you will just, take it and do it,
Right.
go by. You may even take 2 years or 3 years, so that you don't have that sense of urgency.
Maybe
So,
that's why I said I don't agree with it, right? Because I know it's things I gotta take care of, but I'm slow rolling it. I'm doing it at my own leisure. I haven't put a time frame on it. I haven't said gave myself 14 days or 21 days.
Right.
I might maybe need to incorporate it.
right. That's that avoidance behavior. So that's what we call it.
That's what it is. I got a lot of that.
Yes, it's something that you need to get to, but you don't want to put a deadline to it because you're pretty much avoiding it.
And another thing, just to add on, being that we're talking about SMART goals, it's outside of the acronym, right? But it's recommended to, if you got like a confidant, whether it's a spouse or best friend, right? Share your idea with them. Tell you why. Because it gives you some accountability, right? Because no one wants to look like a failure, right? So if I tell you, Kyle, listen, in 6 months, I'm doing this. Now I feel accountable to it. You get what I'm saying? Like, I done put it out to the universe. I shouldn't have said nothing. You know what I'm saying? Because when you don't say nothing, it's no accountability, right? But if I tell you, Kyle, listen, I'm working on this idea. I want to have it done in October. I don't want to let myself down, but I don't want to let you down either, just because of our relationship. So it's like, okay, I told Kyle I'm have, and the goal doesn't have anything to do with you personally. You're maybe not benefiting from it enough, but the simple fact that I told you, right? This is just other ways of holding yourself accountable
I got you.
to the task. Because sometimes if we don't implement certain like things, we wouldn't do it.
And we can use this podcast as an example, right? So we're all like holding each other as accountability partners,
Right.
and it's time bound. So like we have our days and our times when we're meeting, and then if we didn't do that, then we probably wouldn't be,
Right.
up.
Exactly, and glad you mentioned that, because it may be times where we all working, we're busy. We know we have we plan to schedule a podcast on a certain day. I could be dead tired. I don't want to let y'all down. You know what I mean? So that's back to the point that I was mentioning. We put a time on it. We hope it's an accountability factor where we don't want to, like you said, accountability partners. This helps. This is proven that this helps goal achievement, right? Even with, like I said, a physical and with exercise, accountability partners are recommended.
Right.
For
And
that.
Sorry to cut you, Evan. But also too, if you would like to go even a step further, you can actually have your goal written down on an index card and carry it with you throughout the day. And so you can always just look at it, refresh your mind. It can stay in the forefront of your mind what it is that, you're actually trying to achieve. So that's a great strategy to implement as well too, if you're really serious about, acquiring or achieving your goal.
Right. And I know we spoke about this a while back. I see a lot of people, they implement like a vision board, right? And writing your goals down, having a vision board, all of these things that may seem like insignificant. Like you go to someone's house, you see a vision board, you're like, what kind of crazy stuff is this? Like what?
Mine's right over here.
Right.
Yeah, let me see your vision board.
I can't turn my camera around because I don't want anything to mess up, but I have mine on the wall right here.
I might need one of those ideas now. Go ahead.
And to the unconscious, you like, now how is that effective? Anyhow. But there be things like that have real life effects, because sometimes it's going to take, like for instance, writing it down or having a vision board. That's the first step toward manifestation. right?
Absolutely, I agree wholeheartedly.
You're taking the idea from your mind, right, and you're actually bringing it to uh
Fruition.
And
some
it materializes.
you,
Yes, it
right. It
materializes.
materialize, and that's the first step toward materialization. Sometimes it's something simple as writing it down on the paper. You're taking it out of your head, the confines of your head. You know what I mean?
Yes, and I can tell you too that it does work because I know one of my previous mentors, the end of each year, he would have us take out a sheet of paper and we would write a letter to ourselves. And we would write down the goals that we want to achieve for the upcoming year. And so we would put it in an envelope, a self addressed envelope, and we would give it to him. And then the following year, around that same time, he mails that envelope to you, and then you like get this envelope in the mail. You're like, wait, what is my handwriting doing on this envelope? Addressed to yourself. And I would open it up, and the goals that I had written down, most of them, the majority of them, I had achieved. So
Wow.
it does work. Yeah, it does work.
Yeah, that's work. That's very important, man.
So man, as always, y'all know every episode. A lot of times when you see me just chilling, I'm soaking it up, right? Because it almost seems like y'all talking to me. I know we're supposed to have a podcast where we're providing information, but I never miss an opportunity to learn and grow and add to what it is that I already know. So I haven't been implementing the SMART strategy. So I know it, but I haven't been implementing it. And I think I need to do so. I appreciated this episode.
We're holding you accountable now, so you better start implementing.
Listen, the E helped me accountable because what you already know the time. I know the time. I got a text from me. I was like, oh my God, I forgot. So I had to say, okay, I'm not going to be the one to mess this one up. So I was held accountable. Yeah. So I'm saying, man, like always, man, every time I get together with y'all, I learn so much. So we had another wonderful episode of the Building Legacies podcast. You know, we spell our name uniquely. That's what you said, right? BLDNG. We spell it uniquely. And we like for you to like, subscribe, and share and comment. Remember, comments are very important for us. Engagement is important. You can find us on all social media platforms as well as wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Wherever you listen to your favorite podcast, you can find Building Legacies. And we'd like for you to subscribe to that as well. So as always, we want to thank you for tuning in, and we come with love.
Yeah.
That's right. And don't forget, start writing your SMART goals. We're going into the second quarter.
Right.
Absolutely. We're going to shine in the second quarter.
That's right.
Absolutely.
We have to do a follow-up episode to this and see if everyone wrote their SMART goals and how much they accomplished.
Right.
I like that. Let's do that. Let's see whoever's was this for us or the audience? Who's it for?
Us and the audience.
Right.
Right. So we'll do this in another couple of months to see who wrote down their goals and achieved them, or at least achieving is not an important factor, is it? I know it's important, but it's not the number one goal. It's just to go towards
you become.
the goal.
Yes,
Okay.
who you become in the process.
Got you. All right. So it was a nice time being with y'all again, man.
Absolutely.
All right.
Thank you, guys.